That's why I want to have white kids, because I want the white race to continue.
Well, it's racist because of historical and because of systemic racism that runs in white culture.
So, but what's racist about me wanting to have white kids?
Nick Fuentes challenges what he sees as a clear double standard. He points out that when black people talk about wanting black-only families, it's often celebrated as cultural pride, but when white people express the same wish, they're instantly labeled as racist. In this fiery exchange with Myron Gaines and 6 black women, Fuentes dives into the controversial topic of interracial relationships. The debate quickly heats up as he pushes back on what he calls the women's hypocrisy, stopping them in their tracks and calling out their double standards. Let's break it down.
Because we've been talking about race mixing.
Okay.
That's sort of been...
That's the first time that word has been said.
Nobody
Well, on the show before you guys got here.
Okay.
And indirectly also, yeah. So I thought I'd ask the panel, and this is really prompted by Myron, because, I respect everybody's opinions on this, but what does the panel think about race mixing? You all have black boyfriends, except for the Jewish boyfriend. Why don't we start with you? What do you think about race mixing? Do you think about this? That is a fair question.
So, I actually don't necessarily call it race mixing. I call it interracial dating. After that, I don't know the exact time frame, but I believe in the 1950s, that's when interracial marriage was legalized. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong. I can't put a correct date to it. But I don't think it's inherently bad. I don't think it's inherently something we should strive for. If it happens, it happens. I know there are certain people who their dating preferences are anti one specific race. I do not agree with that. But if someone comes from like a very Asian family and they're like, listen, for cultural reasons, for like getting along reasons, for integration reasons, it's going to be in my best interest to date another Asian person. I really do get that. But if someone is like, an Asian person who says, I'll date anyone besides Hispanics, that's, it's a little sticky.
I see. Why don't we just go around the panel? Can I say my position first?
Yes,
Is that
go.
all right?
Yes, okay.
I know. Yeah, you guys are probably curious. So here's my position. Okay, it's a little. Okay, you're going to be surprised about this, I think.
Me?
Yeah. So I've actually said on my show a lot. It's a little controversial in my community, but I'm actually attracted to women of all groups, of all races. Okay.
How is that controversial?
See, I'm 21st century. Well, here's the controversy. But I would never date someone from outside my race.
I agree.
Okay.
But here's why. So I'm Catholic. My body count 0. I want to have sex with my wife, just my wife. And I only want to have sex to have kids. And I want kids that are from the same group as me. I want white kids. So naturally, it follows if I want to have a wife and I want to have white kids, then I shouldn't date someone outside my race because I'm not going to marry them.
Correct.
So that's my position.
Yeah.
But we'll go around. What do you guys think about that? What are your thoughts on it in general? What about you? So I'm sorry. Someone had a
I was going to say, if that's the way you think Baby Blue, then keep that in your vicinity because,
But he has the right to not.
I agree. I agree. Because dating outside my race makes me feel weird. I've done it just to make sure that
What was his race?
He a Nicaraguan. He still had color. You feel me? He was Hispanic. But at the same time, he still wasn't a black man. You get what I'm saying? So I agree with you. Okay. You get what I'm saying? Like, love y'all, but I ain't gonna date you, baby. You get what I'm saying? And I get that. Because I want black babies. So if I want black babies and I want the black race to continue, I'm going to, lay down.
It's like he's trying to push his racial agenda. We're doing the same.
Yeah. I mean,
because it was cute how his message had a racial undertone and yours didn't. You guys said the exact same thing.
The only reason why mine didn't have a racial undertone is because I'm black and he's white, and people like
not necessarily because you called it interracial dating and he called it race mixing.
Yeah.
That is just.
Oh no, I was talking about his example. Like, he is a white guy who wants to date white women to have like white cultural standards. Where my example was an Asian person dating an Asian person to have Asian cultural standards. It's the same exact thing, besides white and Asian, obviously. But coming from a black woman, I feel like, especially in the society where very democratic, very libertarian people are like supposed to be quote unquote the correct people, they would like accept me saying it before him just because it's me. Which
but again, it's about the undertone and how you guys said it. Like I said, you had the exact same message, but you called it race mixing.
That's the same
called it
interracial race mixing.
It was just the verbiage.
One at a time, ladies. One at a time, so they can actually hear you. Somebody had something over here.
I just feel like it was the same message, but different verbiage.
Yeah, and that's what makes it different. Like I'm okay. Like before we got on air, we were talking because somebody on my Instagram live asked me to ask him when he dated a black girl, and he said it with a smile. No,
right.
And I said, okay, I don't care because I wouldn't date a white man.
That's fine.
That's right.
And then he called me racist.
Well, I said that as a joke, though. I said that laughingly, in a friendly way. Well, but here's the thing: we are saying a different thing because you're saying culture, but I'm saying race.
Exactly.
And I think that, but here's the thing. I feel like if a white person talks about their race and the way that black people talk about theirs, they get called racist. But you said you want to have black babies because you want the black race to continue. That's why I want to have white kids, because I want the white race to continue.
Well, it's racist.
Here's the irony, folks. When the panelists say they want to date within their own community to preserve their culture or have children that look like them, it's applauded as pride and identity. But the moment Nick Fuentes voices the exact same logic from a white perspective, suddenly it's painted as racist. That's the inconsistency no one wants to acknowledge. You can celebrate being pro-black, pro-Latino, or pro-Asian, and it's all seen as empowerment. But try being openly pro-white, and the label racist gets thrown on you immediately. It shows how society plays favorites with which identities are allowed to be protected or celebrated. Whether you agree with Fuentes or not, the point stands. Why is the standard different depending on who's saying it? Drop your thoughts below. Do you think this double standard is real, or is it just perception?
Nothing is racist about you, particularly because you're 24 years old. However, coming from a white, not white, an Anglo background, and you know our country was built on the backs of slaves and or taking people's land and or acting like it's ours. It's always going to be there. So yeah, and the fact that white proud guys go, we're the superior race, so you can't act like that doesn't happen either. So just because you're sitting here going, oh well, I'm different, I like y'all, I'm just not gonna date y'all.
But both people didn't mention anything about superior. Even I did not mention anything about
I didn't say that. I'm just talking about culturally and historically. That's what I'm saying.
She's saying
I'm not saying nobody said that.
Oh, so like societally now the air is different because
systemic racism is real.
His ancestors might have had like totally bad intentions.
They did.
I don't even think it's too far removed from him. That's probably like his parents.
My ancestors had bad intentions.
In the sense,
I mean, you're a white man. Like, I'm sorry.
Well, but you don't. But you're making assumptions. I mean, what background am I? Do you know?
Right.
You said Italian beforehand.
See, I look at it kind of differently. You say that white people came and took the land and we built it off of blacks and everything. The thing is, though, where were blacks working or where were they slaves in America? They were slaves in the South, and they were doing agricultural work. And so as a consequence, they didn't really...
Are we calling it work? Or were they forced? Were they happy to be there?
Forced labor is still labor, right?
That's forced labor.
So, I mean, but the point is, it's agricultural labor. And, you know, America's not built on, you know, cotton necessarily. It's built on buildings and railroads and things like that.
That the majority of African American people actually help facilitate and make.
But the point is that, you know, blacks picking cotton doesn't mean that they built America. Moreover, all of the wealth that they created in the South was destroyed by the Civil War. Civil War destroyed the entire South. And by the end of it, there was almost nothing left. They were occupied by the North for a generation. So, you know, the notion that like blacks built America, whites built America.
So you're saying that, you know, black people just had to sit down and do the dirty work.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they were brought here. They were told to do the work. And they did agricultural work. But to say, you know, blacks built America, they were always a fraction of the population. They were never more
what
than
I said
10%.
is that America was built on the backs of slaves, is what I said. And then also the other part of that is
Well, going back to
we said about the land
racism real quick, because you had said that you want black babies and everything else like that. And then he said he wants white babies. And then you said, well, back in the day, there's a part of systemic racism. That's what makes it racist. But my argument would be, if you look at someone like a Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, et cetera, they all pushed for, you know, black families to stay together, support black businesses. How's that different from what he was saying? Because they were also around during the civil rights era.
No, I didn't say him wanting to date within his race is racist. I didn't equate that to systemic racism. I was talking about his verbiage. The fact that he called it mixed, and the fact that it's blacks, and the fact that it's like, yeah, I like y'all, but I'm cool.
Right.
That's where the systemic racism comes from.
That's also,
and I'm okay with that. Like I want to have a black family. I don't mind that. Like, I'm okay with that. I would never date seriously outside of my race. I wouldn't.
But would it be fair to say that systemic racism can be played on both parts? Because on the black community, they also were saying, hey, back then, same thing with the racist whites. There were also blacks that were racist back towards them. Like, hey, we're going to keep black culture
But
here.
black people being racist that was a response.
Yeah.
That was the response that was met with racism. That was them standing up for themselves. That was them regaining their lives and their cultures and their identities. That's what they had to do.
But isn't racism, regardless of whether it's in retaliation or not?
Fair point.
It always circles back to this contradiction. When someone from the black community says, I want to date within my race because I want black kids and I want my culture to carry on, it's respected as pride and preservation. But when Nick Fuentes or anyone white says the same thing about wanting white children, suddenly it's toxic, racist, and unacceptable. That's the inconsistency at the heart of the debate. Either both positions are valid cultural preferences, or both should be condemned, but you can't pick and choose depending on who's saying it. Myron Gaines actually raises a strong point when he compares this to historic black leaders like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., who also promoted strong family units and cultural identity. If that's celebrated as empowerment in one community, why is it demonized in another? The reality is, the rules keep shifting based on who's talking, and that's why the argument feels less about morality and more about narrative control. That's a wrap for today's video. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next upload.